going on, everybody? Welcome on this Thirsty Thursday. I'm your boy, Guns Picks, and we are sweating bets as we speak because it is conference championship time. And this is DadBodds number 114, and we are going live tonight, and we are joined by a very special guest. Make sure I give him the proper introduction. You can find him at Mark Zeno on Twitter. He's a bet analyst for Pickwise, Sports Grid, and Beeson, and probably everything on your radio dial. Ladies, and we see him on the hustle now. I think he is the he might be what do you call it? The fifth, the man off the bench.
Yeah.
When F Trigger is on the road tour 2023. Mark Zeno, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to DadBodds. What's going on, my friend?
It's great to be here. Thank you for having me. A lot of fun all around with the Wager Talk guys and the Hustle Show. And who doesn't love a cold Viva, right?
Oh, yeah. I ran out. They go fast in this house.
They do.
That's right now. We're actually we were talking before the show. We're sweating the Penn State, Illinois. They're up. Looks like they're up 9 right now with 2:30 to go. No, they just hit a free throw, so it's 9 now. So so just to do a quick interview for you, and just so the people let the people know where you came from. So I always ask this to everybody. Like, how did you get started into sports gambling, and how did you actually evolve yourself? Not only just being a sports handicapper, but actually getting into doing sports content. Was this something that you always knew that you wanted to do?
No, actually, I didn't. I mean, I got involved in sports gambling because I was raised by a bunch of Italian degenerates. So, I mean, it was just something that, I remember being like 13 or 14 years old. And I grew up in New York on Long Island. So, I don't know how familiar. There used to be these little sheets. They were like this long and that wide. And you used to have all the NFL games on it with a spread. And you used to fill it out and circle it. And you'd give your money back with the sheet to the guy who gave it to you. And then if you got your picks right, he would come back the next week and pay you. So, it was just always around. My whole family was always around gambling and everything else. And not like, anything other than recreational. I mean, we weren't like, worried about paying the mortgage and food on the table. But it was always something I was always around. I've been around, gambling on the NFL for, like I said, when I was a teenager. And so it's something that I always incorporate. Now, I always kind of did want to do sports talk. When I found that I wasn't going to be shortstop at the Yankees, they drafted that Derek Jeter guy, so it worked out well for them, not so much for me. I knew I wanted to go into sports media and just be around sports, and so gambling was always a part of my show. It was always something that I focused on. It was always something that I talked about. And then all of a sudden, the world exploded, and we started normalizing gambling. And how I really, really focused on it was a couple of years ago. In a COVID whole thing, I had gotten laid off in the radio industry 3 times in 2 years. And I was like, screw that. I can't do this anymore. Like, I can't be in this talk radio industry that is so volatile and so unstable, and you lose your job here and there. Like, I needed to find a place where there was some stability. And the only place of growth and the only place of stability was in the sports gambling world. And so I sunk all my energy and effort into focusing on being an official sports betting analyst. And that's really where it started for me a couple of years back. And, I just started doing it over and over again, as much as anybody would put me on, any network that would put me on and give me a 5 minutes and let me just break down games. And then one thing led to another. I got hired by one network. I got hired by another network. And then I got hired by Beeson. Then I got hired by Sports Grid, and I got hired, and then all of a sudden you just start to carve out your way in this space. And here I am now. I don't have one job. I have like 6.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
I'm in touch with some of these different networks as just somebody who's, knock on wood. And I'm good. Like, I'm good in the industry. I know what I'm doing. And I can make the sports gambling stuff fun, entertaining. And so I've really kind of made that my home. And I do a lot less regular sports talk now and a hell of a lot more sports betting analysis and handicapping.
Yeah, I mean, those are my thoughts exactly. It's like, if you want to get your face out there, you just got to keep putting out content, and then eventually, like, you'll get connected with like certain people and certain networks and certain online attributes. It's like the gambling industry is just beginning, essentially. I was like, it's always been kind of like really condensed into Las Vegas, Nevada, and now you see the thing just kind of like blossoming into this nationwide thing. And
what I really like. And I'm sorry to cut you off, but here's what I really like about the sports betting industry. It's as much as it is results-based, because it is, right? Mm-hmm. If you're good, people will recognize that you're good and they will gravitate towards you. It's not like that in sports talk. You can be great, but subjectively, someone could think this guy's better, someone could think this girl is better, or whatever, and all of a sudden you don't get a phone call for an opportunity. But if you're good and your handicaps are good and your breakdowns are good and you make people money and you win bets more often than not, guess what? People are going to continue to have you around. I mean, and in reality, that's how I don't want to say force, but that's how I sort of got in with the Hustle Show and the folks from Wager Talk, just because, look, every opportunity they gave me, boom, I came on, nailed a bet. Boom, I came on, nailed a bet. Boom, I came on, nailed a bet. And it's like, okay, Zeno knows what he's doing. Like he's smart and he understands it and he's got a process and, he knows how to break down games. And, he's somebody that they have grown to respect. I'm somebody that they've grown to respect as a very good handicapper. And so that's one of those things where the sort of acknowledgement and like not gratification, but the appreciation is right there. It's instant. If you're breaking down games consistently and not just throwing darts in the dark and because you can spot the phonies, right? We can all spot the people who are picking games, sort of throwing darts in the dark and getting, because that's why I say it's not always about results, because in reality, you could just say, well, every game's 50-50. You cover or you don't, right? You could have a terrible handicap and still cover, or you have a bad handicap and or a great handicap and not cover. I mean, somebody once said it to me, you might have been on the winning side, but you weren't on the right side. And that makes a ton of sense to people within the industry.
Sure.
You can get a bet right and cash a ticket, but that doesn't mean the process that we all use and the indicators that we all use to lead us to a conclusion on a game. If we all agree on it and the game doesn't work out that way, again, you might have been on the wrong side, but that doesn't mean you had a bad handicap.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't agree with that more. And then the chat is going wild tonight. And Dave only comes for my feet picks. Well, I send those in your DMs only. Don't be spreading that around because I make people pay a lot of money for those. As I'm hustling all the time. And Dan Delp in the chat, what's up? I also see Michael there giving a little capping advice. I love Michael. What's going on, buddy? And your boy in the building, JR Black, as always, just hanging out with guns on a Thursday night. Another question I got to ask you too, and I noticed this that you post this, and I would do the same damn thing, and I would have spiked the damn ball too. Is John Cena follows you now? Is that true? Is that because of the selfies you're doing in the mirror at the gym, or is it something else?
I don't know. And the funny part was I wasn't even following him. Like, I'm sitting here and, I'm putting some of the videos and stuff I have out on Twitter. So I usually get like a lot of reaction and my notifications went off. And all of a sudden, like you get a special notification when it's like a blue check mark person follows you. And then I saw it. I'm like, wait a minute. Did I just see what I thought I saw? Like, there's got to be somebody with a fake name, John Cena. And I went and a blue check mark. I'm like, hold on, let me double check. Oh, 14.1 million followers. I'm like, oh, wait, that is actually John Cena following me. And I guess you're right. Like, he gets me, like big arms, no sleeves. Like, we get each other. Like, so obviously that's what he came for is my gym selfies and handicapping.
Damn. All right. Note to self. I need more gym selfies. All right. Is there anybody else that I guess you consider famous, not maybe in the gambling industry or just in general, that follows you outside John Cena? Or is there anybody else that really comes to mind?
Waffle House. I think that's about it. So, yeah, I mean, I don't put too much stock in that. I just thought it was cool. Like, nobody like that big. Like if The Rock or a Professor or Stone Cold or John Cena follow you, you make a big deal about it. Yeah, absolutely you do.
I would do the same thing, but I'd also ask myself, like, why? I was like, what did I do?
I don't know. You might unfollow in a week when I say something stupid because that's coming out within the next 20, 30 minutes easily.
The best I got is like Barstool Big Cat, and there's like, is that really? I guess that's a celebrity in the internet, but I mean that's all I got under my belt. But yeah, I saw John Cena, and I'm like, I'm a quasi like wrestling fan. I don't watch wrestling, but I just love the industry altogether. I mean, I think a little bit of the sports and gambling industry, as far as like being a host and being an announcer, you can take a little bit of how guys cut a promo, and you can kind of bring that energy into what you're doing. So, all right, enough about this interview stuff. Nobody's here for that shit. I was like, let's get into some NBA talk for Mark Zeno joining us today. Now, I know there's a lot of college basketball on right now, but also the association is firing, and we're getting to the back end of the season. We're starting to see the playoff picture come together. I'll start this out right now. Is like, now that we're sitting here in early March, what are the teams right now that you see are you have to back right now more often than not, versus, and also the teams that are pretty much fadeable at this point?
Well, I mean, put it this way, and I've said this several times over about the Denver Nuggets, okay? And coincidentally, they did just lose a home game. But if I'm getting a price like under minus 250 on the money line, I'm playing it. I'll just take Denver on the money line. I know it's not a long-term solution, but when you're winning 88% of your home games, guess what? The 5 times that they've lost this year, and I've only started this, like a month or two ago, but so they've only had 2 losses. The 2 losses I've taken on it, I've covered more than enough winnings that I'm not worried about it. I mean, you're talking about a very unique scenario here. Like, I'll lay the points in certain cases with Denver, but at this rate, it's never a bad play, or at least to this point, it hasn't been a bad play to just back Denver on the money line. Now, I think as we get closer to the end of the season, you'll start to see them have a little bit of regression and lose some more home games. So I'm going to proceed a lot more cautiously, because what's going to happen here is you're going to get a lot of load management, right? Because they are 7 games ahead of second place, they're going to start to peel it back a little bit. What do we got? Less than 20 games left. Yeah. So you have to be really cautious going down the stretch here with a team like that. There are other teams that have been fading. Miami at home, worst home cover team in the league. They've covered exactly 9 times at home this year. That's it. The Golden State Warriors, worst cover road team in the league. They're playing tonight in Memphis. Memphis is catching points. Like, Golden State shouldn't be laying points on the road, period. I get it, John Morant's out, and Memphis is a mess right now, but they're also the second best home team in the league, straight up wise. They've only lost 5 games at home as well. So, the NBA, people, I hear a lot of strong people and smart handicappers I respect say, I don't do the NBA. I can't do it. There's too much out there. I don't know. I think that there are a lot of trends that hold true in the NBA more than anywhere else. I think teams genuinely play more to their numbers than in any other sport, right? Like, in the NFL, this is the team leading the league in rushing. They can have a game out of nowhere that you all of a sudden, they only rush for 80 yards and they get blown out. Like, that happens. More often than not, teams in the NBA play to their averages pretty consistently. And I think that when it comes down to it, there is a clear line between really good and really bad in the NBA. And you can just find those right matchups. Again, you can always look at back-to-backs and try to play on the fade on the tail end of a back-to-back. Especially if a team is going from home to the road where they have to travel, it makes it even worse. There's historical trends on all this stuff. I think there's a little bit less variance in the NBA. And plus, the one thing about the NBA that is different, particularly than college basketball, what happens in the last 90 seconds to 2 minutes of a game? There's no fouling. That's not the case in college, right? You're going to get some garbage free throws. You're going to get some, free points. Guys are going to be chucking. That doesn't happen in the NBA. When the game is over, it's pretty much over. Barring like a half-court chuck shot for a goof or something crazy happening, if you're in position, and this is also a live betting thing, if you're in position, in the second half, you can ride that out because genuinely these guys sort of take their foot off the pedal if the game is out of reach, and you're in a comfortable spot. So I think that there are things and trends about the NBA that hold true. So that's kind of what I stick to. But I also think too, the NBA, when it comes to it, is very much a league where I have found, at least, sharp bettors can take advantage of 2 things. 1, spots where the public goes hard and they go against them. And 2, if they have information about a player possibly sitting out, you can follow the money a lot easier. And because the line changes. Once they announce those lineups and who's out, boom, line changes, gone. The best of the number is gone.
Right.
So you have to be ahead of the game and stay close to whatever book you're using, computer, whatever it may be, and watch where the money goes throughout the day. And as you get closer to tip off, that's what I think. The other thing that turns a lot of people off to the NBA is like, I never know who's playing each night. And it's part of the risk you're going to have in handicapping the NBA. But I think if you're in tune with it enough and you follow it closely enough, you can sort of stay ahead of some of this stuff.
Yeah, I'm probably in that boat where like I don't really have an opportunity to go bet the NBA or look at the NBA or analyze the NBA because I've got full slates of like college basketball to look at every night, and that one just seems a lot easier.
Sure.
And pretty much all the players, if they can play, they'll play. And you in the NBA, at least the regular season standpoint, like you just said, that you never know who's going to be sitting out. However, when you get into the playoff motion, I'm a little bit more in tuned where I can
Playoffs,
be.
right.
You have a 7-game window. This is, they lost game 1. They lost, it was a close one in game 2. They're heading back the other direction. You can watch like where the line situation is where it correlates from, home versus away. And then you can kind of like make matchups that way without even knowing like the situations of how these teams play. You just know that these are 2 playoff teams and they're playing, for, fully motivated, almost in a vacuum type of situation, and you just basically going talent versus talent, who's better, for home versus away. And those situations I like, but the guys that can do that daily, I applaud them. I'm like that. It is just it is like putting a bet in the morning because you want to get a decent line, and then finding out that 2 players that were supposed to play aren't going to play. That would make me want to throw my remote control through $1,000 TV. I wouldn't want to.
Here's the other thing I would say too.
Yeah.
And when you know ahead of time that guys are out, okay? So take, for example, this was a couple of nights ago. Cleveland was hosting Boston and Jason Tatum was out. Line got super inflated. And Cleveland is a team that was laying 8 points in that game. And I absolutely hammered the Boston Celtics. And I told everybody, I said, 1, this line is overinflated because Tatum is out. But 2, Cleveland is like has one of the worst offenses in the NBA. They have the 6th worst scoring offense in the league. There's no situation where they should be laying 8 points to anybody. And guess what? The Celtics defense is good enough, and they still have enough secondary scoring. It's kind of like that same thing in the NFL. Like when it almost is the flip of the NFL in college. When a college player is out, there's still a big delta sometimes in talent between team A and team B, right?
Sure.
So hypothetically speaking, let's just go back to USC up against another Pac-12 team. If Jordan Addison was out, right, that's a major player on their offense outside of quarterback. The rest of USC is good enough to go beat Arizona State everywhere, right? Just up and down the field, they're good enough to beat them. So they have enough talent. In the NBA, I think it's almost like the same thing where, the good teams, the deep teams like Boston, if they're missing Jason Tatum, there's still enough talent across the board for them to hang with anybody in the league. It's not like that in football. You miss a key player in the NFL, the whole game plan gets affected. So I think that there's some of that too in the NBA because depth is something that not a lot of teams have, and the deep teams are really good at it.
Yeah, I think what everybody has to understand is like the books adjust for a reason.
Yes.
It's like, so when that adjustment is made, is like you've already like Mark just said previously, it's like the books have already adjusted to whatever the injury is. It's like it's better off to maybe even look at the other side, even with the team missing the key player, than it is to go and just jump on the team that is at full strength because the line is already adjusted for that. So
I know you said you don't play totals a lot in the NBA, but
yeah,
unders in the NBA are so damn profitable because the public is always betting overs. And the odds makers are always inflating the over line more than they should. Like, think about it. When I see a total in the 240s, I'm automatically looking under. You're saying both of these teams, like so much has to go right for both teams to get to 120. It's not easy to score 120 in the NBA. It's just not.
Right.
So you have to have a lot go right, and one team has to stay on fire for at least 2.5 of the 4 quarters. Because I cover a team here in Atlanta, the Hawks. Like, they're all offense, right? Well, they always are getting high totals because they're so offense-oriented and their defense is bad. But, again, on any given night, they're not dropping 100. They're not averaging 120 a night. They're averaging 113, 114, 115. But those key buckets are huge when it comes to totals. I think most of the public obviously looks to bet overs. But when it comes to the NBA, I think as you get later in the year, because what happens earlier in the year, totals are lower. Games are slower. Teams don't score as much. And then they automatically start to overinflate once you get to like Christmas time. And you can really take advantage of it. But most of the public doesn't look to unders. I always look to unders.
Yeah. Another question, just kind of transition here. You mentioned the Ja Morant situation and what the Grizzlies are going through right now. Is like, how is that going to affect them moving into the playoff movement? Because right now they're sitting at 3rd.
Yeah.
They don't have Ja Morant. Nobody knows when he's going to come back. into the lineup because he's dealing with like the gun situation or whatever. But what do you see like where the team will the team unify without him eventually, or is this going to be a team in shambles until John Morant comes back?
Remember a year or two ago? Was it last year or the year before where the Grizzlies are like 16-2 without John Morant in the lineup? It was like the year that he started getting MVP consideration.
Right.
Without him in the lineup because they're a deep team. They are, and they're well coached. Here's how I'm going to approach John Morant. I don't know how the team is going to react in his first game back. What I would look to in his first game back is his individual player point total over. Ja is the kind of guy with a chip on his shoulder that wants to prove to the world that he is a legit star.
Yeah.
In that game, I don't know, depending on what the number is and who they play whenever he gets back. I think there's a lot more variance in figuring out whether the team's going to cover, what they're going to do. But my guess is that Ja is going to want to announce his presence with authority when he gets back in the lineup. Now, I can't say how that's going to be for the rest of the team, but I'm going to wait and see whether this is a guy when he comes back says, screw this, I'm putting everybody on my back and we're just going to go start mauling people. And, we're not going to quit for 4 quarters. We're going to play everything out. We're going to beat the hell out of everybody. I think that's the way he's the kind of player. I feel like that's the way he would want to react. But I need a game or two to see it. Like if I see one game and even if they lose and don't cover, but he goes over his point total, I'm like, okay, now I kind of see where this is going to go. I'll play him in the second game. Situationally, again, I have to get a good number against the opponent that I like. But, that's kind of what I'm looking for. I think you have to always take into account in any game you handicap the situation, what happened before, what's ahead of them, what have they done the last couple of games, where are they going? I mean, the NBA is such a streaky league, right? If you just start looking at what they've done over the last 2 weeks, that sort of tells you what kind of mode this team is. Now, it can switch on a dime and all of a sudden they could just go in a different direction. But for the most part, the NBA streaks come for teams. They get 3 or 4 in a row and then they drop 2 or 3. Then they get 3. I mean, it's just, if you got in on Milwaukee during their 16-game win streak, you did really well because they covered a lot during that streak. And if you were smart enough just to get in and go, you did better. Like usually when a team starts winning 7, 8 in a row, I'm like looking to fade the streak because the NBA is like that. But, again, Milwaukee is such a talented team and they're deep and they're better than everybody else that, that's a streak that I jumped in about 7 or 8 games and started cashing tickets on.
Yeah, everybody forgets that like John Morant's not the entire circle around the team. I'm like, you have Desmond Bain, you have Jackson, you have Brooks. Also, they have a good backup point guard in Tyus Jones. It's like they can like kind of like adapt and evolve, and it makes the other players like kind of step up into the role. It's like, listen, I got this. I can score points. I can shoot. I can take the workload away, and then they just kind of distribute it. And it kind of makes teams a little bit better because you're not worried. You're not worried about giving John Morant his touches anymore. It's
right.
like you're working a little bit more like more of a cohesive unit. You maybe even going deeper down the bench and you find some more talent that a defensive player that maybe can score a little bit more on the offensive end. It's weird how that works out with a lot of teams. I mean, you have to understand these are the top athletes in the world. It's the best of the best from the college level going up and playing in the professional league.
And by the way, Memphis is working Golden State right now. They're up by 8.5.
There you go.
It looks like I'm trending in the right direction for that. And I think we cashed on Penn State. I think it just went final.
I was just going to say that, baby. Firing shots across the board, baby. Cash that ticket for Penn State. Oh, my God. They won the game. And yes, this is a Penn State team that is very hungry to go into the NCAA tournament. This team can shoot. This team can play. I'd like to see them go far into the Big Ten tournament. But before we close out the NBA segment of the show, I want to talk about what teams do you see like making big runs in the towards the NBA finals, whether it be conference futures or whether it be NBA championship.
Well, let's start with the East because it's a 3-horse race. That's it. Milwaukee, Boston, and Philly. That's it. There's no reason to bet on anybody else. I mean, with all due respect to Cleveland, they're the best defensive team in the league. They have Donovan Mitchell. They have a lot of players scoring, but they can't hang in a 7-game series with any of those 3 teams. Because as good as your defense is, guess what? You're not shutting down Giannis for 4 out of 7 games. You're not shutting down Jason Tatum and company for 4 or 7, and you're not doing it to Joel Embiid. You're just not. Like in a 7-game series, it's not in their favor. They have to score. You're going to have to score in the playoffs as much as you play defense because everybody starts to play defense in the NBA. All those mediocre defensive teams like Milwaukee and Boston, guess what? They're going to play a hell of a lot more defense in the postseason. So you need guys who can score. I think the West is wide open. I have a future on the Clippers to win the West. That was where I went. Now, Russell Westbrook has sort of made me want to vomit in my mouth over and over again since joining the Clippers, and it hasn't looked good, so I don't feel as strong as I did. But, I was banking on the Kawhi Leonard, Paul George healthy in the playoffs for them to put together a run. But the West is wide open. I don't really – do you want to trust Denver? I don't think you're wrong for doing it. Again, I would only bet them to win the West. I wouldn't bet them to win the title. But I think that's probably your safest bet, obviously, at this point, given where they go. I wouldn't trust Sacramento. And what do you really do with Phoenix? Kevin Durant now is going to be out in another 2 to 3 weeks. You're not going to see what Phoenix looks like with Kevin Durant until the playoffs. Like you're not. So I don't know if there's enough time for him to gel with these guys and really create some sort of momentum where you can trust what they're going to be. Do they have the talent? Absolutely. But they have no depth now. They got rid of all of it in the Durant trade. So one injury like this, they could be out. If he comes back if he doesn't play 4 or 5 games before the playoffs, I'm like, well, how do I know what I'm getting with the guy in the playoffs? Especially a guy who by himself, being the lead horse, hasn't really proven that he's going to elevate a team and take them over the top. So, the West, I think, has a lot of problems. Golden State's home road splits are so disconcerting for me to believe them. I mean, they're at the 5th seed right now. Could they climb to the 4th seed? Maybe. I don't know that it matters per se for them. I think that they're experienced enough. But the only other play, really, if you wanted to take a flyer, if you ask me, is Dallas. But they got to get their defense right. Like, I'm shocked at how good they were defensively last year to how bad they are defensively this year. And that, to me, creates some concerns. But I can't trust Memphis. I can't trust Sacramento because, again, Sacramento's defense is terrible. And nobody else really gets me excited. So I don't want to run away from the Clippers, but they have just been a completely different team since Russell Westbrook showed up.
Yeah, I think you have to look for value at this point. It's not, taking Denver or taking Milwaukee at this point is like, okay. I was like, is there really any value in that? No, it's like, you got to look for those sleepers out there. Maybe those guys like kind of wrestling in there. I thought maybe the Suns had that opportunity moving Durant to with the Suns with Booker would have been in the right direction. And then why does he have weak ankles? I mean, what guy can't escape an injury if he tried. It's like, I don't know why they like, I don't know, do a squat. I was like, I mean, look at this guy. He's got the biggest arms on the planet. I don't know if he squats. I can't see his legs, but still, I mean, you've got to be able to like, clean the floor or get stronger ankles. I don't know about this team. Before we close out the NBA, are there any plays tonight that you're looking at on the late slate?
I mean, Memphis was the one play that I had. The Knicks are a very interesting bunch. They're much better on the road than they are at home. So they have been really, really good. And I would tell you this. See, again, I know you don't look to total. Sacramento's favored by 2. But this is 239.5, 240. There's no way the Knicks are going to contribute offensively enough to get to 120 in regulation. Their offense has been better as of late, but again, this total seems inflated to me, and their defense is good enough to slow Sacramento down. That's a big number. Like the Knicks, I think this year on average, and I'll take a look at it real quick. Just give me a second.
Yep.
The kind of totals that they've been facing this year haven't been anywhere near 240. That it's just not a total that they've seen a lot. So you have to take that into account. One more second here. I'll pull it up. Yeah, like the Knicks' average total this year has been 224. Like their average total over the last 2 weeks is 223.
There you go.
I mean, and on the road it's been 223. Mm-hmm. Now, Sacramento's home total is 236, but that's a 13-point differential.
Right.
That's a big number for it to fall in the middle. You know what I'm saying? And even at that, the total is 236, 239. So in reality, you have 16 points of differential for the Knicks to make up here. So I look to the under.
That's how you cap a total there, folks. And I see Sam in the chat saying, smash the like button, folks. Help the SWN network grow to the moon. And that is your segment with the NBA Talk with Mark Zeno. Make sure you follow him on Twitter at Mark Zeno. And let's give a little shout out to our sponsor at Viva Seltzer before we get into college basketball talk.
365 days of hard work. And it all comes down. Guys, we've waited a year for this, and you're already drinking?
Ryan, this is a charity scramble. We're here for the Vivas.
Viva Tequila Seltzer. Only 88 calories. 0 carbs, 0 sugar, and gluten-free. Ditch the malt. Add tequila.
Good job, boys. One for you, one for you.
Yeah, I love that commercial from the Super Bowl, so I don't have to do a stupid ad read and stammer over my words because there's a lot of big words for me, but I'm a numbers guy. I don't read. But going back, looking at college basketball right now, it looks like Virginia is going to be cashing. We cashing, baby. Ow! They're up 9 right now with 23 seconds to go, but it is college basketball. Anything could happen. And then it looks like your live take before the show started. Looks like Auburn is creeping. They're only down 2 with 2:47 left in the game. But we're here to talk college basketball. Hit the punch. I gotta switch my hat here for a second just to make sure that you understood where I was coming from.
I see what you're doing here. I see what you're doing.
Now I watched your little pick-wise.
What you're doing, and I don't like it.
What am I doing? I switched my hat. I'm a Duke fan. Okay. Everybody on the chat knows I'm a Duke fan. Tell everybody. Okay. So I actually I just wanted to know. I saw your pick-wise minute. I didn't watch all of it. I saw you have an NBA take, and then I was like, I'm just gonna put this to the side. I just want to know, did you have a bet on the Duke Pittsburgh game?
I did. This is what you call a flat out wrong take. So let me just back it up a second. I played on Pittsburgh -7 against Georgia Tech, and it was a lucky as all hell cover. If you watch the end of that game, there wasn't a single measurable that Georgia Tech had that they should have been in that game against Pitt. And I like the way Pitt was playing down the stretch. They pushed Miami to the limit. I think that they were ready. I thought this was a team that might be able to make more noise than they just did in the ACC tournament. So I backed them against Georgia Tech. They get against Duke. And my thought process was simply, okay, they sort of played down to their competition. I think they slept walk a little bit through it, especially defensively. Offensively, they were fine. They shot 57% from the field, and they were over 40% from 3 in the game. They did exactly what I thought they were going to do offensively. They just played no defense, and I think they just kind of thought Georgia Tech was going to lay down, and they hung around for the whole game, but got a very lucky cover with some free throws at the end there. So I played on them again today. Okay, here's the wake-up call, slap in the face, hey, dude, you can't play like that again, especially against Duke. And Pitt is the better shooting team. They're the better shooting team from 3. Defensively, they obviously have their issues, but I thought their shooting was going to be enough to keep them in this game and keep it close. Duke shot what today? 60% from the field in the game and 45% from 3. Pitt had no shot. My take was, Pitt's shooting should be enough to keep them in this game. They start out 0 for 5. They're in an 11-0 hole before you drink. I burn the ticket. Burn it. It was just dead wrong. I was in the group chat with all the guys. I'm like, okay, yeah, Zeno's an idiot. Don't listen to a damn thing I say the rest of the day. I was dead wrong. But I had Penn State in my minute, okay? And I have one more game later on tonight in my minute. So we'll get to it.
I'm just busting balls.
I know. Listen. Transparency and accountability in our industry is big, right? Dead wrong on Pitt. It was such a completely wrong handicap. Duke ran him out of the gym. Now, I could make the argument if you wanted me to play that game again tomorrow and let me see what kind of result. Give a day off, whatever. You know what I'm saying? Play that game again. I think Pitt's probably a little bit closer than what they showed today, but that's kind of what happens in sports.
I think Duke. I've being a Duke fan, I've watched Duke in at least the past five game window. It's the first since probably late February, probably late February. This is the first time I've actually seen this team work together as a team. Because they've just been a bunch of 5-star freshmen kind of doing everything on their own, and they've had some health problems along the way as well. So now they're fully healthy, fully strong, and you actually see this team kind of working as a cohesive unit. Everybody's kind of figured out what their roles are going to be. Duke is kind of one of those teams that, as a fan, kind of gives me hope in a way. and I just think that they're built well enough to kind of make one of those big pushes right now. I'm not saying in the Final Four, but I say they could make a real push to contend at that level.
Let me ask you this about them, because I only cover them from the betting perspective on the outside, but just as a fan, did they have an identity issue this year without Coach K? Did it take them a little while to figure out what they wanted to be and how they wanted to play and everything else? I mean, was it that much of a factor?
I think they lacked leaders. I think that when you're surrounding yourself with a consistent industry full of freshmen and 18-year-old kids or 17-year-old kids for that matter, who knows if they come in early. I was like, you have a lot of kids that they come from these high schools where they have to do everything. They carry the teams on their back in most cases. It's like, but for John Shire in his first year, I think it took him a little bit of time to kind of figure out his coaching approach. Everybody just wants to emulate Coach K. You can't do that. You have to kind of figure out like your own different method. So I think it took that team a little bit time to progress. And you see this with Duke teams all the time, especially with young teams. But the problem is they don't have that sophomore, that junior to kind of step in that role. I think at the point guard position, they do have that. I don't think he's provided that type of leadership role play. It's like, but I'm starting to see something happen now. I don't know what it is, but you had a lot of guys kind of standing around the outside, 7-footers for that matter, is like trying to shoot threes all the time. I was like, somebody's got to get inside and start rebounding. Now this team is one of the top rebounding teams in the country. And as far as offensive rebounding, they're getting to the rack, they're scoring points, they're not shooting as many threes. Because they have like 2 or 3 guys that can just do the 3-point shooting. They're allowing them to do that, and defensively they're just playing so much better. And that
I was surprised. I mean, I knew they were talented. They just didn't look cohesive, as the perfect word to use, all year long. They looked. It was one of the more inconsistent Duke teams I've seen, and I think Coach K was part of that. But again, I haven't followed him close enough to know from that standpoint what some of their issues are.
Yeah, so I think they're starting to figure out like, okay, this guy's our main guy scored. This is the point guard. Let's just let him run, be the general. Is like penetrate when you can. Lively inside, just kind of like racking up the boards and just like getting the dunks. They're just looking really clean, really crisp, and they look just better than anybody in the ACC right now. I'm not saying that's going to translate if they have to play like a Houston or Connecticut or like some of the bigger UCLA for that matter. It's like, I don't think that's good what I see out of them, because those teams scare the hell out of me. But I think if depending on where they sit in the bracket, I'm going to look at assess all these teams all together, and I'm going to not look at the stats so far as the entire season. But what I would do with Duke is I would just shorten it from February to March and see where they're actually at as comparative to the nation. But going off of that, we're going into conference tournaments on this one. So we just saw Penn State not only win but cover in that one. Let's start with just the Big 10 altogether. This is kind of one of those wide open question mark head scratchers. Everybody's probably thinking Purdue automatically on this one. Maybe Indiana can make a push. Penn State, who knows? I was like, who's the team that you see in the Big 10 that is probably your top dog in that bunch?
A lot of people I know and respect are on Penn State, and I get why. Look, when you have probably the best guard or one of the 2 or 3 best guards in the country in Jalen Pickett, you're always going to keep yourself in games. You're always going to be in a position where you can go on a run, because dominant guard play in college basketball is everything. So there's a lot of reasons to trust Penn State. And again, you saw them in the second half of this game really take over and take control. They struggled. This is a decent 3-point shooting team. They struggled from 3 early on, and that's why Illinois was in that game so much. But it was sort of a carbon copy they played of a game earlier this year where they just sort of pulled away in the second half, because they're very solid defensively. They're good on the glass. And with a guy like Jalen Pickett, when all is bad, put the ball in his hands and just watch him take over. And they're a team that I think can surprise some people. They might, again, if you have a future, I think that they on Penn State to win this thing, it wouldn't shock me if they ended up in the Big Ten final. Like, I don't think that would be all that surprising.
Yeah. I mean, Penn, yeah, like just seeing what I saw at Penn State right now, maybe I'm just having that like instant reaction of like, oh, maybe this team can make a run. I was like, I think they're motivated to make a run, is like because of the position they're standing in. You always look for I always look for those teams that are kind of like either on the cusp, on the bubble, or maybe need to move themselves up into the rankings a little bit more. I always think of the teams that are like already kind of positioned at number 1 or number 2. Maybe their motivation is basically just kind of get to the semis, and then we'll like kind of like it's almost like watching Usain Bolt in the prelims of a 100-meter dash. It's like he runs 80 yards and then he kind of like backs off another 20. That's why I look at these teams. So it's
Can I
kind
give you one more note in the Big Ten tonight? I haven't gotten there yet, but it's going to tip off here in 10 minutes. But Maryland has been absolute dog spit away from Comcast Center this year. Now, I played Nebraska last night, and I was wrong. I mean, Minnesota just, they're a bad team. But catching 13 points, like, it's Minnesota or pass tonight, and I'm halfway tempted with a little extra scuttle in my pocket here. Maybe to play on Minnesota here, getting 13.
Oh, you think Minnesota then? Okay.
Yeah, well, just for tonight, not to win the tournament. I mean, I'm just saying in the game tonight, Maryland shouldn't lay 13 points to anybody away from Comcast Center. They're just a bad road team. They're a terrible team.
Yeah, fair. I was like, I'm on the Maryland. I think the Maryland side. I'm taking the Maryland side on this one. They're kind of one of those teams that I consider like on the cusp. I was like, they are positioned right now in the NCAA tournament as like, but they could they may be able to find themselves in a
Maryland. They've just laid so many stinkers here. Granted, a lot of them been on the road, but they have a stinker in their back pocket waiting to come out when you least expect it.
Yeah, that's correct. I was like, but when I see the line at 13, I look at the line correlation between what was it with Minnesota at home? I was like, the line wasn't that much different, or maybe it was a little bit different. It's like, why is this 13 for Maryland? So I kind of like look into it a little bit more, and I understand both as like maybe it's more of the atmosphere, the cheering, or whatever. I don't know what it is, and I know Maryland just when they get away from, you're right, it's like that they just can't win outside their own home court. I was like, but when I see a line that egregious, I was like, my brain just kind of goes, why isn't it 8? Why isn't it 9? Why is it like so? Like from my number standpoint, I lean towards the Maryland side. But hey,
there's a trend that has opened up over the last couple of years. It's the teams that play in that first round game and then have to play the next day.
Yep.
Now they're not catching double digits usually, but if the spread is 7 or 8, most of those favorites are covering because those are the bottom 4 teams in any conference, right? They and the Big Ten has a clear line between like Minnesota and Ohio State were clearly the 2 worst teams in that conference all year long. And can Minnesota do it 2 days in a row? Probably not. I mean, I don't think they win the game by any stretch of the imagination. But what I do think is that, and maybe even for the first half might be the way to take Minnesota. That Maryland's a little bit sluggish. It's their first game. Again, it's a night game, tipping off at 9:30 Eastern. They've been sitting around all day long. The adrenaline is zapped from their body at this point in time. They've been getting up this morning jittery all day long to get out there on the court and start playing. And they've had to sit around for hours and hours in the hotel, hours and hours and meetings this and PlayStation that and everything else. By the time they get there, it's just like there's a lot of lag in these guys.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from there. It's like you never know who's. That's the problem with conference tournaments. It's like who's motivated, who's not motivated.
Mm-hmm.
It's like are they motivated first half and they're going to lay off, or are they going to continue and like play out the whole entire game, smash them, and then maybe lay an egg the next day? Who knows? That's the beauty of conference tournaments. But moving on here, we're constricted on time, and I want to make sure I get a few picks out there because I have a few for the 9:30 game. Who are some like conference tournament teams right now that you see are like these guys are watch these guys make a move? It could be a dog, it could be are we thinking that Kansas is going to win the Big 12? Is there a team that sticks out, or 2 teams that stick out, whatever conference they are, that are going to make a push to win their conference?
Miami's really solid, you can't deny it. They especially with Pittsburgh out now, and I think you need to eliminate Virginia's obviously going to be there, but and I'm not sure what the bracket looks like off the top of my head, but Miami doesn't look like they would lose the ACC. And you talk about motivation. Virginia knows they don't need to win the ACC. Like their motivation level to go out and win this thing is probably pretty low because they only care about 6 games coming up in the tournament, and that's fine. Miami would love to cut down the nets and actually, celebrate an ACC title. So I think it matters more to those kids. I think it matters more to that team, that university, for them to win an ACC tournament, especially given last year how good they were and didn't do it because of the run Virginia Tech made. So, a lot of those players on that team remember that. I think they're motivated to go ahead and do it. UConn in the Big East, it's like one of those things where, and oh, by the way, look, did DePaul might beat Xavier here. This is nuts.
I see Xavier up 1 with 57 seconds left. I'm just seeing it on the ticker.
The Big East is a little bit muddled. I mean, you get Creighton and Villanova tonight, but UConn is the team. And it's just a question again, I think if UConn gets past the next game that they play, right, after beating Providence today, then guess what? They're going to go on a run to this thing and probably win it.
Yeah.
But what's their motivation to win the next game? I think it's one of those things that, and I was talking about this with a good friend of ours from Wager Talk, Adam Trigger. It's just like one of those things where if the situation presents itself that they can win it, yeah, they'll go and do it. But it really has to sort of open up for them to really want to do it, because these programs know I'm already in the tournament. So we'll worry about the 6 games that matter, get a couple of days off, get some extra rest, figure out who our opponent is and sharpen our skills for the tournament. So I think if UConn can get through the next round, and maybe it's just a money line play, depending on who they end up playing, is the way you approach it. And if they win it, then yeah, I think they can go ahead and win the Big East. I don't know if I really trust anybody else to go out and do it at this point in time, especially watching Xavier struggle with DePaul. This is surprising to say the least.
Yeah, overall, not even just in the Big East tournament, I like UConn in the NCAA tournament. This team is really dangerous now. They're playing absolutely hot. They have the guard play to make the push. They are great defensively, and they got length inside. They have almost the attributes right now, and their stats don't really show up. But what they're playing right now is almost like how Houston's playing. It's like they're great defensively. They're just crushing teams in the Big East right now, and they're just steamrolling them. And they're just relentless. And this is a team that is going to be a problem. They could be maybe based on their record, I'm trying to think a 4 or 5 seed maybe.
Maybe even 3 if they win the whole thing.
Yeah.
They could get that high, get on the 3 line. I'll add one more for you. I do not trust Alabama. Do not trust Alabama. Do not trust Alabama. A&M is the team to play on in the SEC.
Yes.
Best defense in the conference. Again, another school that's like, hey, winning an SEC title would be huge for us, right? Consider the football school, whatever else. Winning an SEC title would be huge for the program and everything else. And with that defense, I would never count them out. And I think prior to the tournament, they were like plus 550, 5.5 to 1, whatever it was. I think you got great value with them. Normally I would have picked Tennessee, but after they lost Zigo, I can't trust them. That's too big of a loss for them to really have any real chance at doing this.
Yeah, Buzz has got those guys cooking. You saw what he did with Virginia Tech. And he's got the pedigree. I mean, that team is absolutely suffocating on the defensive side. Yeah, that team can make a run. I think I said that last week about one of my teams that I thought could win the SEC tournament is Texas A&M. They're just everything about them. It just statistically just kind of fits the mold of a team that not only can just win their SEC tournament, but also can make a nice little push in the NCAA tournament. But before we go, we got a few picks here. And I know everybody's been waiting, and 14 people of you watching us live right now. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe to this Sports Wagering Network channel and all the content that comes on this channel. We have the Breaking Ankle Show. We have the Late Night Bangers Show. We have the Odds Watch. We have so many shows that are going to be on this channel all season long. So please like and subscribe. So I'll start with you, Mark. What do you see tonight for plays, or maybe even Friday?
Well, for tonight, I have Siena to beat Niagara if you're into the Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference. And, this is a conference that we were talking before the show went live. The college I went to, Loyola, they left and went to the Patriot League. But I know the conference well because I watched it for years and I've followed it ever since. Siena is always that team that's there at the top. And, they have a date with Iona next, which is the best team in the conference. But I like Siena tonight laying the 3.5. This may surprise some people, but I played on Vanderbilt tonight. LSU in the game against Georgia last night shot 36% from the field and 20% from 3 and somehow managed to win the game. There's an argument they don't even belong here. in this game. Now they beat Vanderbilt, LSU did during the regular season, but I forget the guy's name, the big forward that they have, Williams, had 35 in the game, and they scored 84 points. Like, that is not LSU's offense at all. Vandy defends the three really well. They got an advantage on the glass. They don't turn the ball over. They're one of the best, ball protection teams in the conference. I'm going to lay the 4 with Vanderbilt here tonight. I know they're missing their big man. It's late. My names are slipping my head here. Bobbins, whatever his name is. People know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But anyway, but I think it's a buy low spot on Vanderbilt. This number should be bigger. Again, LSU won 2 conference games for a reason. They're bad on all fronts, and their offense is inept. So I think it's a buy low spot for Vanderbilt. I'm going to lay the 4.
Yeah, I can't agree. Can't disagree with you on those plays at all. But I'm going to go a little bit down the Big 12 angle on this one, and I'm going to be going TCU -2 on this one versus K-State. Listen, if you actually break these down statistically, I think it fits the mold here. TCU 57th in offensive efficiency, 59th in offensive rebounding. Now compare that with K-State. They're 16th in defensive efficiency. However, not a great defensive rebounding team. They're 218th in the country as far as defensive rebounding is concerned. Now, on the offensive side for K-State, 50th in offensive efficiency, 281st in turnovers. They're very sloppy with the basketball, 221st in field goal percentage. Now, TCU, they like to get turnovers off their team. They are very good at that, 26 in creating turnovers, and they're 24th in the country in defensive efficiency. Line correlation on this one, too. Both these teams played one home and home. The spread was -4.5 for each one of the teams. However, K-State, their win was a little bit misleading because they were missing. TCU was missing their key player on that one, Mike Miles Jr. And if you know anything about him, when he was out of the lineup for 6 games, they were 1-5 straight up. He averages 17.2 points per game. He is the heartbeat of the Horned Frogs. So that is why I'm going to be taking TCU -2 as play number 1. Now, play number 2 on this one, I'm going to be taking Creighton on this one. They're going against Villanova in this one. I think the line is -4.5, at least when I got it. So let's check out the stats on this one. I know Villanova. Everybody loves Villanova. They are the
extra large huevos. You have extra large huevos.
I do. And you know that. Why are they favored then? Why isn't Villanova favored?
Well, I don't think Villanova is good enough to be favored, but it's hard to trust Creighton. They seem like such a paper tiger at times.
Yes. Yeah. Well, it's like statistics. I cannot deny the stats, and I cannot deny where the teams are in the small windows that we have here. Villanova is 37th in offensive efficiency, 100th in field goal percentage, 333rd in offensive rebounding. I love rebounding teams, folks, because second chance opportunities under the buckets. Teams. Kids miss buckets. I want rebounders. Creighton's defense, 13th in defensive efficiency, 29th in defending shots, which they get in your face, make you miss shots, and guess what they do well? They rebound the ball, 12th in defensive rebounding. Now you got the Villanova defense. They're 80th in defensive efficiency, 175th in defending shots, 361st in allowing teams to the free throw line here, folks. And if you know Creighton can make their free throws. They're 39th in free throw percentage, 29th in offensive efficiency, 26th in field goal percentage. So the last time Villanova played Creighton, they won 79-67 at Villanova. So revenge factor for Creighton, check. And then you look at Creighton in neutral sites. They are 9-2 against the spread in their last 11. So I love Creighton on this one. There's a reason why they're favored here, -4.5. I think they get it done here.
I'll add one more note. Villanova is the best free throw shooting team in the country. Both of these teams.
That's correct. They can make the free throws. A little bit scary on that one, but I think it won't matter because Creighton will do their due diligence to take Villanova out, and maybe they'll get into the NIT. It's almost like a Michigan situation. I don't know. It's like Michigan. You thought that was a team that'd make a nice little run into the tournament, and all of a sudden they lay an egg versus Rutgers. It's like whoever saw that coming. But that's how it happens in college basketball. It's ebbs and flows, and no game is guaranteed. Doesn't matter how much time is left on the clock. But that's going to do it for DadBodds episode number 114. Mark Zeno joined us today, and I appreciate you spending time with us today. 13 of you beautiful bastards are in the chat. Please like and subscribe to the channel for the SWN and all the shows that come on there. Mark, tell them where they can find you.
On Twitter at Mark Zeno. Same on Instagram if you like the IG content, and follow along. Appreciate all the love, guys. Thank you.
yeah, that's going to do it for the show. For next week, I'm probably going to do it on location. I'm going to try to figure out my schedule. I'm going to be in Turning Stone Casino, New York.
See you there.
Oh, and Mark's going to be there too. So maybe we'll just do a big bang show. I don't know what we're going to do. I'm going to try to figure that out. Got a lot of content I'm going to be doing there. So I guess it's going to be me, Mark, Trig, and CT, and a big, beautiful crew. So I get to meet you, dude. So that's awesome.
Awesome.
All right. So that's going to do it. Please close us out, pun. Let's keep dancing, folks. Bang!